Thank you so much. Mazie Hirono is a very hard act to follow, but I will do my best just to give you a brief update on what we've been doing this past year. As many of you are aware, the attorneys and legal staff at the legal clinic represent low-income Hawaii residents before the immigration court and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or what we call USCIS. This year, we had the joy of adding a staff attorney, Kara Tang, who is a 2017 Richardson Law School alumna, to our staff. And she brings a passion for representing immigrants who are in removal proceedings. Many of you know that despite the severity of the consequence of deportation, immigrants in removal proceedings are not entitled to counsel that are paid for by the government. As a result, those who can't afford to pay for a lawyer often end up representing themselves in cases involving what we all know is a highly technical area of law. Our focus when we take cases for immigrants in immigration court, our first focus is to represent longtime Hawaii residents who are in deportation proceedings. The reason for that is that many of them have family members, including U.S. citizen children, as well as extensive ties to our Hawaii community. And so our goal in those cases is to prevent family separation. This past year, I had the pleasure and the privilege of actually representing a client who last year I represented her in removal proceedings and prevented her deportation. So I had the honor and privilege of actually helping her now with her naturalization application this year. Another group that we focus on are recently arrived asylum seekers, in particular women and children, women who are fleeing gender-based violence in their countries of origin, and children oftentimes who are fleeing gang violence in their countries of origin. And Kara has jumped into that fray and has taken on the representation of an unaccompanied minor who is seeking asylum, as well as we've had the pleasure of working with attorneys from Cage Schutte, Lisa Schwartzweger, Trisha Kagi, and Stacey Gray, who have graciously offered their time and legal talent to represent an unaccompanied minor who is seeking special immigrant juvenile status, which is for children who have experienced abandonment, abuse, or neglect. So we thank them so much for the really honorable work that they're doing. The other half of the work that we do, like I said before, is we represent immigrants in front of USCIS who are seeking green cards for their family members, as well as citizenship. And in that sphere, I have been so lucky to have our legal assistant, Leah Nakau, by my side for the last 3 years. She works so hard and she shows up every day for our clients. And this year, I had the pleasure of compiling her application, which we recently submitted to the Department of Justice to make her an accredited representative. So before I close, I just wanted to share one client story, someone who I will call Mrs. Nguyen, because just to protect her confidentiality and privacy, but Mrs. Nguyen was a boat refugee from Vietnam in the late 1970s. And she told me about her journey out of Vietnam in that boat. And as many of you know, 200,000 boat refugees from Vietnam died during that journey. She recalled to me that she had to stay hunched over for days and nights in order to escape detection. And when she was able to get out of that boat, she realized that her back was broken from being hunched over in that position for so long. And because of that injury, she experienced lifelong pain. She eventually settled in the United States as a lawful permanent resident, but unfortunately, she was in an abusive marriage, which she eventually had the courage to leave that situation. When she came to our office, she wanted to apply for citizenship. This was near the start of the pandemic, and she had just been evicted from her longtime residence and was in a temporary shelter. She was coming to us for help because she dreamed of becoming a US citizen, but she had just been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And because of that, she felt she couldn't memorize and prepare for the civics exam, which you have to pass in order to become a US citizen. So we helped her apply for a medical waiver because of her Alzheimer's, which she received. And as I was sitting with her, in the waiting room of USCIS, I asked her, why do you want to become a US citizen? And rather than saying something like more of what I expected, like security from deportation or better access to benefits, she just said, I want to vote. And I thought that was amazing, that she really just wanted to be a part of this community and exercise a privilege that, to be honest, as a US citizen who was born here, I take for granted. We went through her interview. It was a pretty grueling 1-hour interview. But at the end, when the officer told her she passed. And when she was told that she passed and that she was going to become a US citizen, she grabbed both of my hands, said thank you, and began to weep in the office. I tell her story, this story because, even though I was the one, in that office there to receive her thanks, I believe her gratitude also belongs to all of you, because all of you stand by us here at TLC. We are able to stand by the side of Hawaii's immigrants when they need us. So mahalo again for your support.